I had the opportunity to meet for the first time Dr. Carlos Gómez-Durán when I was in the early stages of my surgical career. And he was instrumental in guiding some of us through a pathway of knowledge and development of our capabilities through innovation and research. He was the one who helped me in the final stages of my PhD degree in 1987, and he was with me and the other members of the council that surveyed that work, and I was lucky enough to get awarded my PhD at University of Barcelona at that time. From Carlos Durán, what I can say is that he was someone that you could always reach him. He was always supporting us in any idea or any project that we would about to develop, and he was always available for us. I think that probably, according to the information we have collected over the years, he has been one of the most prominent cardiovascular surgeons in the past 50 years that came from our country and became an international leader in the field of valve surgery and specifically in mitral valve repair. It is a pity to know that he has recently passed away, and in my opinion, he will always be in our memory for the years to come.
Hi, I'm Dr. Randy Martin, and I had the unique experience of getting to know Carlos Durán over many years of my life. I first met Carlos when I was moderating a very large satellite TV program on cardiac surgery, probably 25 years ago. And I was struck then, as I was when I visited Carlos in Montana, at his energy, his enthusiasm, his innovation, and his commitment to excellence in the care of his patients and in educating his colleagues. He was a remarkable man in that regard, and an incredibly warm, gracious gentleman who had a wonderful family. I do remember Carlos telling me that he'd run at Pamplona. I always thought that would be very unique, but that didn't surprise me, that here's a gentleman that would run with and against the bulls, as he did in developing our knowledge of mitral valve surgery. So I consider it a great honor and a wonderful privilege that I got to meet and know a gentleman like Carlos Durán, a giant in cardiac surgery and a giant as a human.
Carlos actually was more than a friend. I think he was really a great teacher, and in addition to being an innovator, he's really a great administrator. We recruited Dr. Carlos Durán to head the Department of Cardiovascular Diseases at my hospital, King Faisal Specialist Hospital in Riyadh, in 1987. And actually at that time, we combined the services, cardiac surgery, adult cardiology and pediatric cardiology together under the Department of Cardiovascular Diseases. And Carlos headed that department, and actually he took that department into an extremely high level. And at a personal relationship, I think I feel that he tutored me not only into certain surgical procedures like the mitral valve surgery and the aortic valve surgery, which he had a lot of experience in, but he also tried to make out of me a scientist, actually, and that's the man he was. And I always remember the time that he said, you're operating too much, but you're not writing. And he guided me towards really publishing and writing in peer-reviewed journal. And I really owe that to him, the fact that he made the way I think is different from when I started. And in addition to that, he was a great man of compassion, caring personality, and actually had a great effect not only on myself but also in the hospital as a whole, the department, my colleagues as well, and I really miss him quite a lot.
So I had the chance to work with Carlos Durán when I was in the middle of my residency, and I was at a time where it was difficult for me. I was hesitating, stopping cardiac surgery. And when I arrived in his office, he was extremely kind. And the first thing he told me was to question all what he was telling me, and he asked me to doubt on what he was saying. And that was the beginning of a very exciting scientific experience for me that brought me back on track in cardiac surgery. So he dramatically changed my life. And I get into a dynamic anatomy of the aortic valve with him and learn how this valve works. And now all what I'm doing, all my scientific activity and surgical activity have been driven with this experience. And Carlos was a fantastic man, an amazing brain. They were so smart. That he was very humble and never dominating the young people with whom he was working, contrary to the experience that I had in France. And he was a grandfather, a father and also a grand brother for me. It could be after I went back to France, he was still very pleasant, and we wrote a lot of papers, and that was one of the most important experience in my life, to be able to be so close to such a big man and such an amazing brain, which I think makes cardiac surgery as it is today. He had a vision and shared that vision that we are trying to hold today and continue his work. He's still very alive amongst us, and particularly in my heart, and I want to thank him and all his family for that and that chance that I had to work with him.
Carlos, I'm going to speak to you directly. The first time I met you was at this famous meeting in Paris in 1974, a meeting that Carpentier and Calmenson had organized. It was dedicated to the mitral valve. And of course, you were there, and you were one of the most active person in this Congress. What I noticed, there are several things that I noticed which have impressed me a lot. First, it was, of course, your scientific input and the way you see things, your vision. And also, I was very impressed by the fact that you could speak fluently, perfectly, at least 3 languages. Spanish, of course, this was your mother language, or no, the language of your citizenship. But English perfectly for me, without any accent. And you were speaking French like I would do, without any accent. This impressed me a lot. Second, which impressed me a lot was, and throughout the years, you have always been extremely kind, always be very open to me. And I must say that especially during those years, the young people were not always very well received by the elderly generation. So I want to thank you so much to have listened to me and to be so kind with me. And so then there is something that retrospectively I found absolutely fantastic. And you have to think that it was back in the 80s that you didn't hesitate to leave Spain and to go to Saudi Arabia, stay in Saudi Arabia, continue to develop your research, and then move to Montana, always animated by this need to do research, to improve things, and to be better. This is something which I always find remarkable. And then the last thing I would like to say is that José Luis Pomar the other day held a presentation where he talked about you. And he reminded us that one of the things that you told him was, don't trust always what I say, challenge all of my thought. And I thought that for a mentor, it was something absolutely extraordinary to say. And Jose Luis was very grateful that you brought him with this message. So, Carlos, I always saw you as someone very kind, brilliant, dedicated to your work. In a way, you were a model for me how to be a gentleman. And adieu. Bye-bye.